I like stories. I also like poems. When I was about 7, we had a poem that struck me, that stayed with me, and it's called Matilda. Have you heard of a poem called Matilda? Well, you will now. So, Matilda told such dreadful lies. It made one gasp and stretch one's eyes. Her aunt, who from her earliest youth had kept a strict regard for truth, attempted to believe Matilda. The effort very nearly killed her, and would have done so had not she discovered this infirmity. For once, towards the close of day, Matilda, growing tired of play, and finding she was left alone, went tiptoe to the telephone, and summoned the immediate aid of London's noble fire brigade. Within an hour, the gallant band were pouring in on every hand, from Putney, Hackney Downs and Bow, with courage high and hearts aglow. They galloped, roaring through the town, "Matilda's house is burning down!" Inspired by British cheers and loud, proceeding from the frenzied crowd, they ran their ladders through a score of windows on the ballroom floor, and took peculiar pains to souse the pictures up and down the house, until Matilda's aunt succeeded in showing them that they were not needed. And even then, she had to pay to get the men to go away. It happened that a few weeks later, her aunt was off to the theatre to see that interesting play, The Second Mrs. Tanqueray. She had refused to take her niece to hear this entertaining piece, a deprivation just and wise to punish her for telling lies. That night, a fire did break out. You should have heard Matilda shout. You should have heard her scream and bawl, and through the window up and call to people passing in the street the rapidly increasing heat, encouraging her to obtain their confidence, but all in vain. For every time she shouted, "Fire!" they only answered, "Little liar!" And therefore, when her aunt returned, Matilda and the house were burned. Judgment, yes. I could continue reading stories. Is that okay if I read another one? Yes? It's a short story. There was once a king who invited his subjects to a royal banquet. The king had told each guest to bring a flask of wine, explaining that all the flasks would be poured into one large wine vat, from which the banquet's beverages would be drawn. One of the king's subjects thought, "What will my small flask of wine mean? Instead of bringing wine, I will bring a flask of water. When my flask of water is added to all the wine, it will blend right in, and no one will know the difference." On the night of the banquet, all the king's subjects assembled around the food-laden tables. The king welcomed his guests and then summoned his servants to serve the wine from the one large vat. The glasses were all filled with water, for every one of the king's subjects had brought water, not wine, reasoning that one little flask of water would blend right in with all the wine and no one would know the difference. So, 2 stories enough? 2 stories enough.